All right, let's get into it once more as we head into another weekend here, a Friday evening edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson along with you as always. Thanks for checking this one out. Make sure you're subscribed to the pod wherever you're hearing me. Give us a follow on social media at Tall Can Audio. Hope you've all had a great week. It's been, I don't know, I guess it's been a quiet week around here. There was 2 episodes this week, but perhaps released in unusual order, as one was Monday and one was Tuesday, and then kind of went quiet. Just one of those weeks where I wouldn't say there was nothing happening, but nothing that was crying out for immediate conversation. And so, we had our guest on Tuesday morning to kick off the week, and so that was a lot of fun. If you haven't had a chance yet, go back and check that one out. Tom Harrington from, all over the CBC platform for his entire career, something like 30 or 40 years over there. I can't remember what he said now. Much of it in the sports department before moving on to doing news, and sometimes covering sports from a news angle, right? Like going to an Olympic Games or a World Cup for the National to cover kind of maybe the political side of it or what else was making news as opposed to strictly covering the results. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to him. We got into an interesting conversation with him about the upcoming World Cup here in Canada, whether Canada should be interested in getting into bed again with the IOC for a Winter Olympic Games, as the number of countries still able to host a Winter Olympics begins to dwindle. Will that bring down their demands? Would that make it more palatable to Canadians? Some interesting conversation there. Really enjoyed talking to Tom. We will probably circle back to him over the summer, as we were barely able to scratch the surface on some of his the things that he had covered in his career that I'd love to pick his brain on. But there's so much coming up around Canada that we kind of stuck to that. But if you haven't had a chance to check it out, go back and find a little time over your weekend if you're interested in such things. Rob will be back on the show on Monday, and then again next Monday, and then he's gone for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I can't remember now. He's taking a little trip. We'll ask him about that here on the Monday episode of the show. But we soldier on. The show continues either way. Also next week, you will get that conversation I've been promising for a little while now with Julian McKenzie from The Athletic. There has been a bit of a dearth of things to talk about as it pertains to the Ottawa Senators lately, so we haven't really talked about the Ottawa Senators much lately. We will go back through the season with him, the playoff drive, the Brady Tkachuk of it all, the Linus Ullmark of it all, the Carolina Hurricanes of it all, and just kind of get a sense on what kind of year it's been for the Ottawa Senators and what needs to happen in the offseason. So we'll do that with Julian later on this, I don't know, is it this week? It's Friday night when I'm talking to you. Next week. In the next week ahead of us, we will talk to Rob on Monday and Julian a little later in that week. We'll keep this one pretty tight here. I just wanted to get a couple things off my notepad for the show that I don't think will keep or will still be relevant when we record the Monday morning show with Rob. I guess it's already maybe a little bit out of date, but the Blue Jays come home from a road trip where they went 4-3. And the reason I say it's already a little out of date is because even as I record this, they're already playing the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll see how this weekend is going to shake loose. You're going to see skiings on Saturday. That's never any kind of a picnic. So, we'll certainly talk Blue Jays with Rob on Sunday. But that road trip, at bare minimum, I think was what everyone was hoping for. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe, I guess you're probably always hoping for 7-0. But I think with what the team has gone through, still the injuries that they're dealing with, still the guys coming off of injury that clearly haven't hit their stride yet, you were sort of looking at this series going, okay, go get 2-3 last weekend against the Tigers, and then can you just get a split out of the Bronx with the Yankees? Can you just keep pace? Because you're already like 9.5 back of the division and whatever else. Like, that may already be off the table. there's still a long few months ahead of us, but I think most realistically now, you're looking to get it going and get comfortably into a wild card spot with the start that both Tampa and New York have gotten off to. But you didn't want, it's not just who you're trying to catch up with, it's how many more games can you keep putting in your loss column. So it was go win the series in Detroit and then just take 2 of 4 from the Yankees in the Bronx. And it didn't get off to a great start on Monday and Tuesday. It didn't really look like you were going to be able to get there. But they pulled out some gutsy performances on Wednesday and Thursday. And as has been the case all year long so far, when things have gone correctly, it's been because of the pitching. And I know there have been moments there early in the season, the Brendan Little of it all, the Jeff Hoffman struggles, everything that's gone on. There are other areas to poke holes. Eric Lauer is now an LA Dodger in how great the pitching has been. But when things go well, it has almost universally been because of the pitching, and we're still waiting for the offense to get going. And this series looked very much like that. Right? What was Thursday night's game? 2-0? Like, score some goddamn insurance runs. They haven't been able to do it. But they did come out of this road trip at 4-3. The bare minimum you were hoping for, and you got it. And that's a perfectly acceptable road trip through those 2 cities. The problem is all the losses that you've already endured, right? Like, had the rest of the early part of this season played out the way we were all hoping for instead of the way that it actually has, there would be no pressure on a road trip like that. It would be just another road trip, and you'd come home 4-3 and go, yeah, that's fine. It's just everyone wants to make up all this distance and wants to close the gap to 500 in like 3 weeks, and it's just not going to play out that way. I've said this before, so I'm not going to harp on it now. But it's going to have to look like this. It's going to have to chip away at it a game a week, right? Like, that's how you're going to have to get back into this. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to be annoying, and it's going to be frustrating. But as that's happening, ideally, you're getting Kirk back. We just heard here on Friday that Bieber is going to start rehabbing next week, or rehab starts next week. So maybe you're going to end up getting more out of there than I. Look, the rehab starts could go in any direction. I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that anything you get from Shane Bieber this year will be a bonus. But perhaps that's too pessimistic. And maybe, the ramp up goes well here. And, from July through the rest of the regular season, he's giving you regular starts. And that'd be awesome. I'm just not holding my breath on it. But by the time Kirk gets back, by the time Guerrero gets going, right, you do start to see, and Barger at some point is going to come back here. Like, there is still a path to this rounding out into a very good team. But there is no miracle 2-week stretch coming where you're suddenly 3 games over 500. It's just a peck away at it kind of thing. And 4-3 on this road trip allows you to do that. Now you got to come home. You got to take 2 or 3 from the Pirates. We'll see what happens there. I'm not going to spend too much time here on the Habs and the Hurricanes because by the time most of you hear this, it'll be Saturday and the game is coming up that night. But man, we saw on Thursday in Game 1 a culmination or a clash or a collision, perhaps. Everything but a crash. I just this week watched that documentary on Netflix. Everybody's talking about the crash. Man, what a nasty bitch. Like, I've never been so sure in my life that somebody's guilty is. Anyway, won't get into that whole thing. It's a crime doc. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I may ask Rob about it on Monday, so we'll save it for then. But a crash of all these potential storylines, and I don't know that we know the answer to any of them yet. But we have talked about ad nauseum, as has everybody else, teams with a really long break who come back, and teams just coming off a Game 7 who are still in go mode. That's almost always advantage unrested team, right? So a lot of people would be tempted to just shrug their shoulders and go, well, that's what that's supposed to look like. It's still advantage Hurricanes. And that may yet be true. I still think that's what I think. Like, if you were forcing me to pick a side here, going into the series, we didn't do a prediction show. It's just the way the schedule fell. I would have picked the Canes in 5 or 6 games. They're down 1-0 now. It doesn't really change my mind based on what I saw in game 1, other than the fact that it was pretty convincing. And when I say this collision of multiple storylines, that was one of them. Rest versus rust. And we've resolved that for the moment. We saw what we almost always see in a game 1 after one team has swept and one team has gone 7. So Montreal has that one in their back pocket. But because we already sort of had that one baked in for Montreal, I'm not sure we've quite yet gotten to the Carolina side of the story here, which is that they're awful in the conference finals, inexplicably, since they have won the Stanley Cup in 2006. They have appeared 4 times in the conference final. This is the 5th. And their record is 1-17 now in those games. So you've been swept multiple times. They did win 1 game. I believe it was last year against the Panthers. The year before that, the Panthers swept them. Like, to get that far over and over and over, like, you have to be a good team to repeatedly find yourself in the conference final. Because the Metro Division has been up and down. Like, this year it was weirdly soft. It hasn't always been that way. They have come out of some tough Metro Divisions before. And yet, they sit here, like I said, after Thursday night's game at 1-17. That is ridiculous. So, that's one side of it, right? That Carolina has gotten as far as they always get, and this is where they fall apart. Do we know that yet? No. They just had an unprecedented 12-day break. We talked about the rest versus rust thing. So nothing has been confirmed on this one either. One of the other storylines, playoff Freddie. Freddie Anderson has gotten, I was going to say a bunch of times. It's not a bunch of times. Freddie Anderson has been to the conference finals a couple of times with the Carolina Hurricanes, and it doesn't often go well when he gets there. But he has performed well before in the first 2 rounds. Kind of a rocky history on and off with Toronto, a better history behind a better defensive team with Carolina until that conference final, and then he falls apart, much like the Canes. I just told you their record, so it's going to be hard for him to be much better than that. But like 1 game in, we've sort of seen all of these preconceived notions that we all have. Freddie's bad in the conference final. Carolina's bad in the conference final. The rested team is always going to struggle to get back into it, and the team coming off of Game 7 is going to be on fire. All of that happened in Game 1. And yet, I don't know about you, but I don't feel like that confirms anything. Like, maybe it does. If Montreal pounds on Carolina again in Game 2 on Saturday night and goes back to Bell Center up 2-0, I may already be at a point where I'm going, this is done. Because I've just got that little belief in the Hurricanes in the conference final. But because of everything that went into the long break, I'm just not quite willing to get there yet. I got to see what happens in Game 2. But man, it was sort of interesting watching Game 1. And like all these boxes getting ticked, right? Like I just said, Freddie, Carolina conference final, rest versus rust. Just like, yep. That's what I expected to see in this game. And that's not to take anything away from Montreal because they were very good. And we finally saw the big line get going in a way that we haven't so far in this series. The Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky line was very good in Game 1. And so I don't want to take anything away from Montreal, who showed up and did exactly what they needed to do. And that's going to go to their legs, right? That'll be great for their confidence. They knew going into this series that Carolina had smashed Ottawa and had smashed Philadelphia. And there would be a small part of you going, what if we're next, right? We've made our way through the first 2 rounds here. A lot of people not in love with our Game 7 performances. Do we deserve to be here? And if Carolina, coming off 12 days rest, pounds them over the head, you kind of go, we might be next. Instead, the opposite happens. Montreal is clearly the better team. And you go, we can fucking beat these guys. So that's big as well. But I just sort of felt like, while I don't want to take anything away from Montreal, I kind of feel like the series starts now. I sort of felt like game one was baked in to not necessarily look as dominant for Montreal as it did, but for Montreal to have that game. And we'll see what happens now. So that'll be interesting here moving forward. I do want to touch for a second on the Vegas Golden Knights thing this week. And they're up 1-0 as you and I talk. But game 2 is starting here in a few minutes, so that won't still be the case by the time this is out. It'll either be 1-1 or 2-0. But this idea of Bruce Cassidy, the former head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, who has been fired by the team but is not being permitted to speak to other teams yet. And on one hand, that's Vegas's right. You signed a contract with me for however many years, and that contract is not up, and as long as I pay you, you can go home and just sit there. Now, it never actually works this way, but the counter argument would be, yeah, I signed a contract to coach your team. And once you fired me from doing that, you broke the contract, not me. But this goes to the whole conversation of guaranteed contracts and how bad do you really want to fuck with that and so everything else. So Vegas technically has the right to do this, but it has always sort of been a basic foregone conclusion that out of common courtesy, you allow the guy that you have fired to go seek employment elsewhere. If somebody comes and knocks on your door and goes, hey, we see you fired your guy, could we have a conversation with him about our job? You say yes. And it's not just common courtesy. It's that you're paying that guy a lot of money, and if somebody else would like to pay him that money, it's good for your budget. But Vegas, we've talked about it forever, has this reputation of being kind of fuckheads, and, you know, we'll stab Marc-Andre Fleury in the back, we'll punt guys right out the door right after we've won a cup with them, all these sorts of things. But everyone's always sort of looked the other way because they win and because they're a winning franchise that's always competitive. And there is a part of me that admires that. And there is a part of me, to be honest with you, that's fine with what they're doing to Bruce Cassidy. As long as we pay you your $4.5 million or whatever the hell it is, I may have mixed that number up with the Berube number. And we may or may not get to that another time. But as long as we pay you the money that we're supposed to pay you, you can sit there and enjoy the view poolside, some of these casinos, rooftops, and whatever else around Vegas. Now, I'm sure Bruce Cassidy would rather coach, and it is against the way the league typically operates to stop him from going to do so. But in principle, I don't hate the fact that they're preventing him from doing so as much as other people do. I don't love it, but like I said, pay the man, and it kind of is what it is. It makes you look bad. Maybe at some point another coach thinks long and hard about taking a job that you're offering him because he knows you could, back burner him down the road. All those things are possible, but it is within their right to do it. But as long as the two teams so far that have requested permission to speak to you are division rivals, I kind of get it. What if Bruce Cassidy is the guy that finally unlocks the Edmonton Oilers, who you know you're going to have to run into at some point in the playoffs next year, plus all through the regular season, to get out of your division, to get to the Cup final? Do you want Bruce Cassidy being the guy that unlocks what's been ailing the Edmonton Oilers? So I get it. It's kind of shitty. I don't know. Sometimes I'm kind of shitty. But here's the part that I don't get. And I shouldn't even say I don't get it. It's just the part that I don't like. Stop lying. Stop pretending everyone but you is stupid. Because actually what's happening is it's making you look stupid. We all understand exactly what you're doing and exactly why you're doing it. But because they also got fucked up by John Tortorella and his idiotic decision to not have the team meet the media after the end of the Anaheim series, they have to meet with Gary Bettman and have a press conference there. And then you're going to come home, you're going to have a press conference to explain that. And your press conference is about how you're not going to talk about it. And somebody asks you about the Bruce Cassidy thing. You say, we're not willing to talk about it while the playoffs are going on because it could become a distraction. You're answering questions now during the playoffs that you wouldn't have had to answer if you had just given permission. How long would that have taken? You had like a week off in between Game 6 of the Anaheim series and Game 1 of your Colorado series. Maybe you have fallen behind on your emails, but GMs do nothing during the playoffs. Let's get that clear. There's no waivers anymore. There's no trades anymore. There's no whatever. You got like 8 minutes of work to do per day. I don't know, making sure the buses are booked, and you got travel people for that. So I'm giving you too much credit. General managers have very little on their plate during the playoffs. You have time to check your BlackBerry. And yes, I believe NHL executives still use BlackBerries. All of them are crusty old whatever. To be honest with you, as a crusty old whatever, I would still use a BlackBerry if I could. You scroll through your inbox. Oh, shit, I got a message here from Edmonton seeking permission to speak to Bruce Cassidy about our coaching position. Yeah, go ahead. Psh, done. Now, I'm sure there's a little more legalese. But this is no more than a rubber stamp transaction. This happens across the league all the time. You say yes, and it's done. Here you are, though, getting roasted in the media, calling press conferences, answering questions to reporters, no doubt having to answer questions from the league at some point about, hey, what are we doing here? Like, you got a plan on this? Because you know the league's looking at them right now. That's been made very clear. And you're like, no, it would be a distraction to allow him to go do an interview in Edmonton. Shut up. You don't want to do it because you want, ideally, Edmonton to not want to wait. And even if they do wait, like in your mind, that's a stone in their shoe. That's annoying to them, so we will do it. And again, if you had just come out and said, these are two division rivals, we're in no real hurry to help them out, we may or may not consider it at the end of our playoff run, I would go, that's a shitty thing to do, but I might do it too, to a division rival, and at least you were upfront about it. Now, he's probably never going to say it quite as cavalierly as I just did, but that is what's happening here. And I don't like when these crusty old whatevers come out and try to talk to everybody like they're pulling one over on us, like they're smarter than us, like they know better than we will never figure out exactly what these genius general managers are doing. This isn't complicated. We all see exactly what you're doing. And like I said, if this reputation that the Vegas Golden Knights have of being just ruthless and tough and we stick to our guns was as deserved as they want to believe it is, they would just say, yeah, that's us. That's Vegas Golden Knights hockey, baby. We'll get to it when we get to it. We're in no rush to help Edmonton. Oh, it might be a distraction. And shut up. Fuck, you're lame. Why is this league so lame at every turn? We all know what you're doing, and you're going to stand up there and pretend that's not what we're doing. Just stop. Speaking of Vegas, just briefly, because I've gotten a couple of mentions, a couple of messages on this across socials, or people wanting to know when I'm going to address the Mitch Marner thing. And the very quick answer to it is, I'm not. Nothing is new here. He is having a very nice playoffs. I believe he's first in the league in points right now, and that may have expanded or been curtailed. As I said, I haven't seen game 2 yet, but he's having a great playoffs. But I am not even mildly interested in wading into the current muck in the debate right now, where we're all supposed to pretend that just because he's having a great playoff in Vegas, the last 9 years didn't happen for Toronto. And even when you have the numbers, even when you have the statistics, even when we all know exactly what we watched for 9 years. Once you weigh in on it, your comments and your mentions and your whatever else get full of just the dumbest dial tones, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. I know what happened with Mitch Marner in Toronto for 9 years. Did it get a little out of hand at the end and him taking all the blame? Yeah. It's because he'd made it clear he was leaving. And yeah, it's pretty easy to blame the guy that you know is walking out on you instead of the guys that are going to be sticking around with you. But he earned every bit of criticism through the first 8 years. Absolutely. Just like the other guys. But his production in important games, in tight moments, was lower than even the other much maligned core four. I have no need to relitigate that. It's all right there in black and white. If the internet wants to make this a Toronto thing and whatever else, I'm just not doing it. So there you go. That's what I've got to say right now. If there becomes a reason to discuss it, like he continues to run away with it, if he wins a Conn Smythe, if he wins a cup, obviously we'll have the conversation. But right now, it's a whole lot of people wanting to use the Leafs for engagement, and I'm not doing it. But the other little piece of Leaf news, and it was quieter, perhaps not surprisingly, than when the story initially broke, was that all of a sudden a lot of your insiders this week started to pump the brakes on the Auston Matthews wants to leave story. Oh, no, now I fully expect he'll be in training camp and, he still wants to be a Leaf and whatever else. This was exactly what I said to Rob on the show a week ago, more than a week ago. Said to you in a solo show before that. I've been saying online. He wanted the coach gone. And you don't have to think that's okay for your captain. Like, that's not a good look for Auston Matthews. This was a bad coach long before Auston Matthews grew to hate him. He was not the right hire. But it was pretty clear by the end of the season, no one was playing for him anymore, and he wasn't working for them. He was throwing them under the bus to the media all the time, and stupid little gestures to his head and his chest, which I guess are supposed to mean something. It's very good, Jimmy. Thank you for your show and tell. Go coach in Edmonton now when Bruce Cassidy isn't allowed. Auston Matthews wanted to see whether Craig Berube was coming back. Auston Matthews wasn't in love with being used like Jordan Staal. And again, you don't have to love that look from Auston Matthews, but that's all this was. Yeah, of course he wants to see where the roster's going. I'm not saying he's going to promise to extend for 10 more years after this or whatever else, but he will be at training camp and he will play this out like everyone always expected, unless he was being asked to come back and play for this coach. So all of a sudden, the coach is gone, and all the insiders who had lots to say about, we'll see in July and the roster improvements. No. This was a very poorly, thinly veiled threat to be I'll see what it looks like. And mainly, I want to see what it looks like. Does the guy behind me in the suit have a giant scar across his head from dropping a barbell on himself? Durr. That's all it was. That's all it ever was. And now that guy is gone, I said it on the show last week, like I said to Rob. John Chayka cannot go down to Arizona and have the meeting with Auston Matthews about, what are you thinking for the future and, whatever this come to Jesus is supposed to be, and then come home and a week or 10 days later fire the coach. It rips the balls off John Chayka because it's shown him to be told off and told what to do by his captain, and it's terrible optics for Auston Matthews because now it looks very much, whether true or not, and probably true, that he told the GM, yeah, if you're bringing that guy back, I won't be back. So you have to do it the other way. You have to. But it's going to leak out beforehand. We're going to make sure everybody knows. We're going to make sure Matt Sundin and John Chayka know there is a change that needs to be made before noise stops coming from my camp. And they made that change, and now the noise has stopped. This wasn't complicated. I keep hearing Darren Dreger out there, who deleted all his tweets. That's always a good look. You want to be one of the top insiders in hockey across Canada. You're out there going, it's my expectation Craig Berube will be at training camp. That's fine. That's your expectation. That's what you've heard. That's what you believe. Whatever. They fire Craig Berube and you go back and delete your tweets? Come on, man. That looks so much worse than just having to, take a couple days of assholes in your replies going, oh, what happened? What happened? And then what happened? That's the good one. Just put up with it, man. You go back and you delete your tweets. Fuck, it's soft. But he did. But anyway, they fired the coach, and now all of a sudden it's kumbaya. Auston Matthews will be at training camp in September. Color me stunned. Guys, this stuff isn't complicated. You just got to pull back for a second and go, what is the message really here? And who would have something to gain from this getting out right now? So I don't love this look for Auston Matthews, but it would have been a way worse look if they had met with him and then fired the coach. So they at least were smart enough to read the tea leaves, get what the message really was, fire the coach, and now everybody moves on. And instead, we got people out here running their mouths at it's Rogers versus Bell, and Darren Dreger's just pissed at Sportsnet, and you're just like, this stuff, guys. The conspiracy here is nowhere near as deep as you think it is, because the people involved aren't smart enough for it to be honest. So, all right. That's enough. We'll be back on Monday. We may or may not get into some of the stuff we've covered today. No doubt we'll talk some Blue Jays, see how this Pirates series has gone. But hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Like I said off the top, if you missed it earlier in the week, we talked to Tom Harrington. Really enjoyed that. That's the first time I had ever spoken with him. He had some really good insights. So check that one out over your weekend if you're looking for something else to listen to during some yard work or whatever else you might have going on. But until Monday, my name is Matt Robinson. Thanks for listening. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll talk to you then.